like to welcome you to the Baseline to Baseline podcast/show.
It's steps to success rather than failures.
But it seems like right now it's just not working.
You've never seen a center like him who could do the amount of things that he can.
So I think the Celtics probably are the ones to beat if they all stay healthy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Baseline with Alister Albert. I'm your host, of course, Alister Albert, bringing the Caribbean to the world via the NBA, as I like to say, and it's probably going to be my new slogan for this show, bringing the Caribbean to the world via the NBA. Of course, if you've seen previous episodes that I've done, it's been a little while since I've done them, but it's been like 2 years ago. The last episode I actually did was an interview that I did with Terrence Mann, Los Angeles Clippers forwards father, Eustace Mann, which was a really cool interview. And, you could expect a few more of those sorts of things with the revival of the Baseline to Baseline video podcast, which is now going to be known as. And of course, Alister Albert here. And, during that time, since that last recording that I did with Eustace Mann, I've kind of developed a few little experiences and a few things that I've done. Of course, becoming, the basketball analyst for Sports Max Zone, broadcaster in the Caribbean, which has been a lovely experience and kind of giving me that time to be able to speak about my love of basketball and the different things happening within the NBA and, all the ups and downs and, players playing good and playing poorly and, teams winning and not winning and all that sort of stuff. So it's really good to be back to kind of do something in my own little space and kind of get the opportunity to talk about things that I want to talk about as well. This new format of the show, we're going to try to see if we could do something every week, bring in, a little bit of a structure to the format and, a few things that I'd like to do in terms of interviews, some sort of interaction with the crowd, with the viewers, I would say, and every time we come on to the new episode, we'll kind of talk about, what you guys had to say and the feedback that you gave during that time, over the span of a couple of weeks or a week or whatever it might be. So what I might do is start it off. Let's see how it goes every week, or maybe might start it fortnightly to kind of give myself some time to pace, everything going on. Of course, I work full time and do other stuff, but that's enough about me. Let's jump straight on into this video because, there's quite a lot to talk about. And of course, 2024 has started now. And, there's been a lot that's happened to this halfway point of the season, essentially. And the few things that I want to run down, topics that we're going to really touch on today is, of course, the NBA landscape. What's happened since the start of this 2023-2024 season? What's kind of who's gone up, who's gone down? Also, the NBA All-Stars, the All-Star reserves are about to be announced. I think probably this week by the NBA. We had the starters that were announced last week, where we got most of the expected and maybe one or two surprise starter inclusions versus getting the reserves. That is always really a bit of a tense moment for the players as they wait to see what the coaches have decided, rather than the fans and the starters list. The coaches have selected these reserves, so let's see what kind of happens and what I think the reserve should be. And also, talk a little bit about the trade deadline coming up in the NBA. We, as we say, we're past the halfway mark now. And, it's going to be interesting to see what teams do to try to go into that home stretch after the All-Star break in Indiana this year. So this is what we're going to do. Pardon me if I'm kind of looking down on my topic sheet. I'm trying to stay on track. I've been a bit rusty, not doing the show for a little bit. But, I hope you read. But what I'm going to do also as well is we're going to pause here for just a few minutes, gather your breath, gather your things, gather your listening, get some coffee, get some water, do whatever you're doing as you're driving, maybe listening to this. Gather yourself as, we get ready for jumping straight on into the topics that I have planned for you today. And what I'm going to do here as well, whilst we take this little break, is use this opportunity to say that, of course, this is a station that I want to try to develop and get opportunities to partner and collaborate with different places. So I'm going to probably put in little promo reads in two sections of these recordings to kind of give probably companies an opportunity to advertise, or people to advertise some of their stuff on the show. So, this is going to be a little bit of an open space, and I'll use this first promo read at this moment to talk about really quickly a lovely book that I think everyone, well, not everyone, or people who have interest should get. This is for people who are specifically in the event management space. We have the event planning and management book, Principles, Planning and Practice, written by Bernadette Alberts, Ruth Dawson, and Dan Lomax. Bernadette Alberts, of course, might be a familiar name. This is, of course, my wife. Third edition of this book. This is done really well. Really proud of this for her and her colleagues, Ruth and Dan. The publisher's Kogan page recently mentioned that it's kind of one of the international bestsellers. She's been given guest lectures at universities for universities who have decided to make this their core text. So what's in this book is is golden. It is what it is. If you want to know a little more about event management, you should definitely check it out. So you could order it on Amazon. Just check it out. Look for Bernadette Alberts on Amazon, or Event Planning and Management, as the book says. This is a third edition, Principles, Planning and Practice. Go check it out. If you have any interest in event management, this is the core text, or the Bible you should have. So this is my first promo read, and I hope you guys take into account, if you have any interest in this, or you know anyone who has any interest in this, go get the book. Go on Amazon, you could get it, or go directly to Kogan page. That's Kogan page, Page. All right, so that was the first promo read. And now what we're going to get into right now is, of course, NBA topics. NBA topics, the stuff that I mentioned, that we are going to get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. So the first thing I want to really discuss is, of course, the All-Star reserves that are going to be announced really soon. We had, of course, the starters that were announced last week. On the East side, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, back in the All-Star game as team captain of the East. Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, and Tyrese Halliburton, who is now an All-Star starter after having an awesome year from the field, facilitating as a point guard of the Indiana Pacers. Of course, this is going to be a hometown game for him, and he is, going to be really running the show for the East team, averaging 12.6 assists in the per game, leading the NBA so far. And then on the West side, you have LeBron James, of course, the ever-present, omnipresent LeBron James, making his 20th All-Star appearance, the most appearances by any player in NBA history. 20 consecutive selections to the All-Star game. LeBron James starting alongside Nikola Jokic, reigning Finals MVP and champion, Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's had an MVP-type season this year for the OKC Thunder, and Luka Doncic as the starters in the West. So I'll just get straight into it. I think for the West, I'll just stick on the West side since I'm right here. The people who I think should be reserves on the West, we're going to start off with Steph Curry. Of course, the Warriors are not doing too great this year, but Steph has been consistent with his 27 points per game, and 40% shooting from three-point distance, still leading the Golden State Warriors in his leadership capacity as much as he can. They are struggling a little bit, and of course we'll get to some of those reasons why they're struggling a little later. Have Anthony Davis next, selecting as another big. Anthony Davis has been also very consistent in the NBA this season. Very few games missed this year, which is unusual for the one they call street clothes. I'm not going to disrespect the guy like that, but that's the name that has been used to describe him, because he's always in street clothes. But he's played as many games as he could this year in a healthy capacity, and really being consistent as you'd expect. 25 points per game, 12 rebounds, shooting 55% from the floor, and doing a remarkable job. Anthony Edwards, leading the Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are now, one of those teams that you just need to look out for. They've been playing outstanding basketball this season. And at one point were first in the league with the best record in the league. And right now they sit number 2 in the league, first in the West at 33-14. So they're doing a remarkable job themselves with Anthony Edwards leading the way. And this is someone I've been saying quite some time. I think he should be the leader of this team over Karl Anthony Towns, and him assuming that role, I think, has led and propelled them to be as successful as they have this year. Kawhi Leonard, another healthy year for him, not another, because he hasn't always been very healthy, but he has played in a good amount of games this year, and that has kind of translated to success for the Los Angeles Clippers. They are currently sitting at 4th in the West, behind OKC, Denver, and Minnesota at 30-15. After starting out dismally when James Harden came over in a trade from or acquisition from the Philadelphia 76ers, trade, not acquisition. They started out, they stumbled, they lost about 5 or 6 games to start out that pairing, and from since then they've just kind of gone from leaps and bounds over the last the last 14 games. They have been 11-3. So that's actually to start off the year, not the last 14 games to start off this calendar year 2024. The Clippers have been 11-3. So they've just been on the correct trajectory going upwards, with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George being healthy, and James Harden facilitating as a point guard that they always wished they had. Devin Booker, of course, 28.4 points this season, alongside Kevin Durant, who's a starter. Like we said, he definitely should be in this All-Star game. Alperen Sengun from the Houston Rockets, I think he deserves a lot of credit for, helping this turnaround of the Houston Rockets. They were sitting in the playoff picture for quite some time earlier on in this season, but they now dropped to 11th, just out of the play-in realms at 22-24, but they've been competitive, and Ime Udoka coming to this team has been, really good for them, and that's kind of one of the reasons why they are doing as they are. Jalen Green playing a lot more maturely. You bring in a veteran like Jeff Green to solidify the bench. Ime Udoka, like I said, coaching and bringing that structure and discipline and toughness to this team. And yeah, you have a team with Dylan Brooks as well, who we know is an instigator of quite a lot of tension and effort and, just tenacity. And I think he's bringing that to this team as well, coming over from Memphis. And De'Aaron Fox, my last selection as a reserve. The Sacramento Kings, of course, had a really great year last year, reaching the playoffs for the first time in was it like 16 seasons or something like that, where they had been in this playoff drought, and they were able to get to the playoffs last year as a respectable seed, and taking the Golden State Warriors to 7 games, almost putting them out at the first round. And they were great last year, and they're now sitting 5th in the West at 27-18. So these are my reserves for the West. Let's move over to the East really quickly. So we mentioned who the starters are. Tyrese Maxey. I think Tyrese Maxey should be in this All-Star game alongside Joel Embiid. He's averaging 25.7 points per game, shooting 45%, almost 45% from the field, and 37% from free. When James Harden left, it was a little bit of addition by subtraction for the Philadelphia 76ers, because Tyrese Maxey stepped into that starting role, and he has just been tremendous ever since. He hasn't looked back, and he's just been a force alongside Joel Embiid, and I think he definitely deserves his first All-Star nod. Jalen Brunson. This guy has been remarkable for the New York Knicks, and I've been a bit of an advocate for him since last season, where he was in the most improved player conversation, and I said on Sports Max Zone that this guy shouldn't even be in the most improved player conversation. He should be in the MVP conversation, and he was snubbed from the All-Star game last year and all NBA selections.
Weekend, Alister, Jalen Brunson, one of the finalists for most improved player this season. Firstly, do you think he will win And secondly, how far can he lead this Knicks outfit?
First question, he should win it, but I actually would say that he should be in the MVP conversation. I think he was robbed this year in terms of being an all-star as well. This is a guy who's come over and has just dramatically changed the fortunes of the team.
So, I think he is definitely a lock for a spot in this All-Star game. And, we'll get that confirmation in a couple of days. 26.7 points per game, 6.5 assists. Shooting 42.4% from three-point range, blistering. And that's why the Knicks are third in the East right now, sitting at 31-17. Marked improvements, especially after getting OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. We have Jaylen Brown. I think, of course, he's a complementary piece next to Jason Tatum, who is, of course, always going to be a locker perennial all-star now. I think Jason Tatum is, and Jaylen Brown, guiding the Boston Celtics to be the first seed in the West in the East for as long as they've been this season. It's a no-brainer. He should be in there. Julius Randle, who is injured right now, has a little bit of a shoulder injury. But Julius Randle, I wasn't too sure about him this year, what he was going to be. But, what Julius Randle has been when he's healthy is consistent and always available. And, he doesn't sit out games at all. He tends to try to play as many games to be there for the fans and be that rock for that team. And 24 points this season per game, 9 rebounds. He's not the greatest three-point shooter, but he's there on this team as well. Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs are fourth in the East right now, 28-16. Donovan Mitchell averaging 27.7 points per game. Paolo Banchero, the Orlando Magic, I think, have been really a success story this season. At one point earlier on in the year, they were like the 4th or 5th seed. Of course, it was really early in the season. But Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who I didn't have as an actual selection for the reserves. I think Paolo Banchero probably should get the nod from that team. They're 8th in the East right now, 24-23, a winning record to this point of the season. They've been great. They've been absolutely great. And, the Magic have a lot of building to do. Of course, since the calendar flipped to 2024, they've been in a little bit of a tailspin, going 5-10 in the last 15 games. But Paolo Banchero has been averaging 23 points and 7 rebounds a game, shooting 45% from the field, had multiple 30-point games and impressive wins for the Orlando Magic. And I think he should definitely get the nod for a team who was never in playoff contention for the last few years. And they're actually now in the play-in spot. And the last person, Bam Adebayo for the Miami Heat, who has been the guy who's always been in the lineup doing the workhorse things for the Miami Heat, averaging 20.7 points per game, 10.5 rebounds. I've always implored Bam to be more Bam and less Idris Femi Adebayo, be less finesse and be more aggressive. And Bam Adebayo, I think the last couple of seasons have kind of taken that on board, of course, alongside Jimmy Butler, who has been quite a bit injured this year, so he's not really been in my selections this year. But Bam Adebayo has stepped up and been that crutch for the Miami Heat and Eric Spoelstra to kind of get them through. So these are my reserves on the West and East side. So we have our starters who are announced, and of course we are going to have the reserves going to be announced really soon in the NBA. For the All-Star game in February, next couple of weeks in Indianapolis, Indiana. And these are the guys who I think who should get that opportunity to represent the teams in the various conferences. Of course, in the NBA right now, what I should also mention, has returned back to the conventional and traditional East versus West format. We're not going to have team captains selecting teams anymore, which was actually really cool. I think most people liked that feature that the NBA instituted over the last couple of years, but Adam Silver decided to kind of go back to a traditional, less frills approach for the All-Star game, and I think it might bring a lot of OG guys back to watch. Just something that that's a little more familiar and what has always been, in line with the historical format of the exhibition games for the All-Star break. So these are my East All-Stars, and these who are the guys I think who should be on the court for that. Of course, we have All-Star reserves, and I have like injury replacement options on my selections as well. So this will be up on social media really soon. You'll see the colored version with all of the faces and names and who I think should be injury replacements. Derek White, I think, should definitely be on that list in case someone like Julius Randle cannot play in the All-Star game because of his shoulder. Derek White has been amazing for the Boston Celtics. So these are the guys that we should look out for. Yeah, and if I'm wrong, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to look forward to see how right I am in this list. So, All-Star reserves, NBA All-Star reserves. Right, so the next thing we're going to move on to is the power ranking. So what I instituted a couple of years ago when I was kind of really into developing Baseline to Baseline as a video podcast series was developing my own little power rankings table to try to show where I think teams are in terms of the power in the NBA. Who are the teams that are the best? And of course, there are loads of power rankings on all of the main platforms, ESPN, Fox. All of the analysts kind of doing their own versions of their power rankings, and of course I've done mine. But what's different with mine is I'm not speaking from a win-loss perspective. I think a lot of these rankings tend to rank people based on their records, to try to say, well, this team is better than this team, etc., etc. What I have tended to do with my power rankings is to suggest who are the teams as implied by the name, the power rankings, who I think are the most powerful teams in a descending order. But think about this list as if there's a team above another team. This is me believing that the team above can win a 7-game series against the team who are directly below them, right? So we're not looking at just win-loss records, because we have teams who have much better records or worse records who are up or down on this rankings. And I think, you might be like, they have a worse record. So like the Golden State Warriors, for instance, on my power rankings sit at number 16 in my power rankings with a horrible a record for this season, very unbecoming of a championship style team. 20-24, 4 games under 500 for the Golden State Warriors. But I actually think there are teams, if they had to play a 7-game series, they would beat, who are actually in the playoff picture right now. So that's why they're kind of sitting, quote unquote, this high in my power rankings. So the things I like to call off, of course, I'll put this on screen for you to have a look at. You could see, of course, my rationale in the top left corner here, saying that we're focusing on team strength, structure, so how this team is made up, current health and momentum, not win-loss record only. So when you're looking at my power rankings, keep that top left-hand corner in mind. Of course, this is a list developed for the pre-All-Star break. The quickest things I'm going to mention, because we're not going to spend too much time on it. Of course, there's a lot of things that we could talk here, lots of topics that are we could kind of talk about. But the biggest jump on this list from what it was when I did my preseason rankings are the Utah Jazz. They have moved 10 spaces up from number 29. I thought they would have been a shambles this year. I didn't think the Utah Jazz would really do that well this season. So I really underestimated what this team was capable of. And, they're playing really creditably well at 24-25, just behind the Los Angeles Lakers. They played really good. Jordan Clarkson, Sexton, John Collins has finally found his stride, I think, a little bit with the Utah Jazz. Chris Dunn, who's been in and out of the starting lineup, Jordan Clarkson, of course, who's the spark plug off the bench. All the guys, you could go check the roster out yourself. But these guys have played very well, and they've had the biggest jump in this pre-All-Star break edition of this this power rankings. The next notable jumps are the Thunder. The Thunder moved 7 spaces up I have them as number 9 on my rankings, and the 76ers, who have moved up 6 spaces to number 2. So we're going to come back to some descriptions here about these in a little bit. The biggest drops for me in this season were the Golden State Warriors. They dropped down 11 spaces from number 5 all the way down to number 16 in my power rankings. There are loads of factors that are accountable for that, and we will discuss in a little bit. The Memphis Grizzlies, who have just had a horrendous season, losing Ja Morant 25 games to start the season, not being there, just kind of dismantled them. You have Desmond Bane, who's been injured quite a lot there. Loads of G League guys on the team right now, just trying to keep the team afloat. And the New Orleans Pelicans, who I kind of had really high hopes for this season, I have them down at number 17, moving 5 spaces down from number 12. And that's kind of where the biggest drops are. So that's the key, the biggest jumps and drops in my power rankings from my perspective. Like I say, talking about focusing on team strength, structure, current health, and momentum, not just the win-loss records only, and who I think will kind of actually be able to beat a team in a 7-game series, like I mentioned earlier on. The Nuggets remain on top of my list. I think, yes, they are currently sitting at the 3rd spot in the West right now, the 2nd spot in the West right now, battling between the Minnesota Timberwolves and OKC Thunder, who have been kind of jostling for those top 3 positions. I still have the Denver Nuggets, as the top team in the West. If you had to think about those teams in the West, do I really believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves and the OKC Thunder could beat the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series? I can't see it. I really can't see it. So they're still the top team in my power rankings, and they're closely followed by let's stick to the West for now. Looking at the third spot, the Clippers. Like I mentioned, the Clippers, getting James Harden as they have. It seems like they finally found their championship contender stride, right? We have been waiting for this version of the Clippers for about 3 to 4 years now, when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George decided to join forces with Steve Ballmer, Lawrence Frank, and the rest of the organization, wanting to turn this franchise around. And what they've been really successful at is being the best team in LA. But what they haven't had a lot of success of is reaching further in the playoffs, and that has always really been down to health. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have not really been, the best health-wise. And you bring in James Harden, who had, of course, a very problematic offseason, forcing his way out again of another team, leaving the Philadelphia 76ers and joining, his preferred team, forcing Daryl Morey to trade him to the Los Angeles Clippers. And they started off really shaky, but like I say, they found a championship contending stride now, I believe. And Russell Westbrook, you had to give, Stephen A. Smith, I think yesterday on his show, wanted to really call out and praise Russell Westbrook for his selflessness, coming off the bench, deciding that, they didn't need to be people worrying about who needed to be in the starting lineup, and just how the team chemistry and structure would actually benefit team success. And Russell Westbrook has decided to come off the bench, and the team has found their stride. Like I said, 11-3 the last 14 games to start this year, the calendar year. And they've just been playing great. One of the things I think we really need to call out for the Los Angeles Clippers and give James Harden a lot of props for. James Harden's usage has been astronomical in all the teams that he's played for, especially the Houston Rockets, when he was an MVP type player, winning scoring titles. James Harden usage rate in the Los Angeles Clippers this year is 20.3%. Now, for people who really don't follow advanced stats and everything as much, probably like, okay, he's used 20% of the time, which sounds a bit low, but it is astronomically low for James Harden. This is the lowest usage rate that James Harden has had in his career. Even as a rookie, he was 0.1% used more in the OKC Thunder. He was at in 2009, 2010, his rookie season, it was 20.4% usage rate as that super sub six man on the OKC Thunder. Right now, his usage rate is 20.3. And of course, it's understandable. You have Paul George, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Terrence Mann, who's there to be a little bit of a glue guy as well. If Vikas Zubac, who is you don't really run many plays for him, but he's still used, in a creditable way as the center, bringing that size and girth to their lineup. And Russell Westbrook, of course, when James Harden goes to the bench and Russell Westbrook is on a heater, you leave him in. And when Russell Westbrook is on the court, it's probably a good thing for him to have the ball as well. So this is the lowest usage percentage for James Harden, and he's having the most success. Compare that to the 2018-19 season when he had his league-leading 40.5% usage rate, right? And he led the league in scoring that season at 36.1 points. He had 57 games where he averaged 30 plus points a game. 57 games out of an 82 game season where he scored 30 or more points. 9 games out of those times where he scored at least 50. But of course, he was second in the All-Star, not All-Star, sorry, the MVP voting. Giannis Antetokounmpo won the MVP that year, the 2019 season. He was first team All-NBA, but of course they lost to the Warriors in the second round 4-2. So we've seen how that usage rate, how great that was, and of course these seasons for the Houston Rockets, there was a lot of injury issues. Chris Paul going out with the injury that he had, derailing that season, and really costing the Clippers the chance to the Houston Rockets, a chance to progress into the playoffs and kind of give James Harden that credibility he deserves for leading his team far into the postseason. But juxtapose that to this year, 20.3% usage rate, and he's probably enjoying the best success regular season, maybe not regular season, but I suppose perception-wise, what people think this Clippers team could do this season. So if this team stays healthy, look out for the Clippers. I think they are the next in the West to kind of really contend. The 76ers, let's kind of move forward quickly. The 76ers behind reigning MVP, Joel Embiid, are having a tremendous season. He's had some games where he's had to sit out, of course, because of injury. They've been 7-6 since the calendar flipped over to 2024. The 76ers are 3-9 without Joel Embiid in the lineup. So the team has struggled when he hasn't been there, but when he's been in, he's been absolutely dominant. This is the third straight season where Joel Embiid is leading the league in scoring right now, averaging 36 points per game, 11.4 rebounds. So Joel Embiid is pushing it, and he's out there. Like, he got an MVP last year. He said, he's done that. His eyes on a bigger prize. Although he's been playing like the MVP this year, he's out for a bigger prize to win a championship and to progress in the playoffs. So Joel Embiid, I think, these and the 76ers, they have a very, very deep team. I think people are underestimating how good these Philadelphia 76ers will be this year. The trade that they did for James Harden to leave, to go to the Clippers, what they got back, Nicholas Batum, KJ Martin, Robert Covington, these are wing guys who can play multiple big positions, who kind of give that strength, versatility, shooting to the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, Marcus Morris as well. These guys are known competitors. And whilst they're not shooting the best from three-point range this season, these are guys that that there's a level of depth to this roster that Nick Nurse has inherited that I believe will really bode well for this team in the playoffs. One of the issues that we've had with the Philadelphia 76ers is going to a very short rotation and not having players that you could kind of trust. They have playoff battle-tested players on this roster now, and I think that will kind of put them in good stead. Kelly Oubre, Maxey, you have Patrick Beverley, who is a known irritant in this league, but who always, when he's on a team, really pushes and jolts his team into effort and possessions. This would be really good for them. So the 76ers are second in my rankings, moving up 6 spots, like I mentioned. We have the Boston Celtics. I'm just calling out the teams that I think we need to really call out for a really outstanding season so far. They're massive favorites in the East. I have the Celtics right now just behind the Philadelphia 76ers, but that's because I believe Trader Brad, call him Trader Brad now, Brad Stevens, GM for the Boston Celtics. I believe he needs to do another trade. They definitely need to get another big body and not really rely on Luke Cornett and Al Horford as their backups. But bigs that could help defensively, because I think they're really, really, really putting themselves in danger, hoping to depend on Kristaps Porzingis to be healthy the entire season. Of course, he's been in the lineup this year. He's been consistent. He's been a really good defensive presence. But I think these guys need to go out and look at some players out there. They're like loads of centers who they could probably poach from different teams. You have Andre Drummond. The Bulls might not want to give him up, but imagine Andre Drummond on the Boston Celtics. That would be an absolutely amazing team. There's Mo Bamba out there in Philadelphia. DeAndre Jordan. Nuggets probably won't give him up because he's their insurance behind Nikola Jokic. You have Capella and Okonu from the Atlanta Hawks. These are guys who have been on the trading block, so maybe the Celtics might swoop in and take one of these guys. Naz Reid from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes from the Los Angeles Lakers. There are centers out there that I think that will just help fortify their front court. And of course, you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, who has been playing outstandingly, like I mentioned. Drew Holiday, of course, their major acquisition, which I think put them over the top in the East. When at the preseason, when I said I actually believe the Celtics will be the winners of this championship this year, I still kind of believe that, but it really depends on if Trader Brad could pull off an amazing trade this season to help get ready for Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the East. The Bucks are bringing in, of course, Doc Rivers played his first game as coach of the Milwaukee Bucks recently, losing that game. We're not going to talk too much about that. The internet has kind of taken care of that. Of course, he is a championship coach, but of course hasn't reached a conference finals in quite some time. 2008 winning with Boston Celtics. After dismissing Adrian Griffin after 43 games, I believe it was. And they're hoping that Doc Rivers could kind of bring in that defensive identity that they require. The Milwaukee Bucks were not the best on defense this year, and of course that's part personnel as well. Losing Drew Holiday really messes with your perimeter defense, and he's of course on the contender now with the Boston Celtics after being moved to Portland to get Dame and then shipped to the Celtics. So I'm not sure what Doc Rivers could do for their defense. It seems to be a personnel matter when you have Dame Lillard and Michael Beasley as your starting guards, and Jay Crowder, who's on the team but not really being consistent and maybe finding his legs after injury. Their defense needs shoring up big time, and if Trader Brad can do something for them, I don't give them much chance to reach the finals because I just can't trust Kristaps Porzingis being healthy a whole season. You have the Los Angeles Lakers with who I believe were the off-season darlings this year. They got a team after reaching the Western Conference Finals last year, of course, getting swept by the Denver Nuggets, but they decided to keep their core team intact after their trades last season, getting Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, and D'Angelo Russell. And, they went on this amazing run after a topsy-turvy season and get into the Western Conference Finals. And most people thought, let's keep this team together. Hopefully Anthony Davis will be healthy, which he has been. Hopefully LeBron James won't slow down, which he hasn't. And, this team should be really competitive. I actually had the Los Angeles Lakers as number 4 in my preseason power rankings because I thought these acquisitions would actually make this team better. Getting Gabe Vincent from the Miami Heat, who he played an outstanding playoff series last year for the Miami Heat and kind of becoming one of those guys that, once Miami Heat kind of get them into the system, they just overachieve. And maybe, I can't necessarily say he hasn't overachieved because he's been injured for most of this season. So Gabe Vincent really hasn't helped. They got Jackson Hayes, they got Christian Wood, and the Lakers they've been the same thing that they've been the last prior 2 seasons. They've just been a mess to start the season, and now they're looking for a trade. Like, y'all have done so much the last couple of years in terms of trades and personnel changes. You've changed the coach. You now have Darvin Ham. Lakers. I'm just gonna stop right there. They're gonna come up in the next segment that I have that we're gonna talk about. The Pacers, of course, they moved up quite a bit, moving up 5 spaces. Of course, we mentioned them being the hosts of the All-Star game this year. And after, reaching the finals of the in-season tournament this season, we saw how prolific their offense is with Tyrese Halliburton and his 12.6 assists per game. That's one to kind of call out. The Warriors, we spoke about them a little bit earlier. They've been the dynasty who are teetering on a breakup. We saw what happened with Draymond Green with his suspensions. And it's just been horrible for the team to see them just kind of disintegrate, but still see Steph Curry be the superstar that he always has been. Klay Thompson has been a shell of himself. Draymond Green has a lot of discipline issues that he needs to kind of deal with. And of course, missing 11 games earlier on the season to deal with some mental, to try to deal with his mental state of mind and, his personal issues. It's been tough to see them struggle as they have. This team, along with the Clippers, were like the teams I said you had to watch out for this year. I was thinking you'd need to watch out for this year. But the Warriors are also in need of some sort of trade, some sort of injection. We hear quite a few rumors of Andrew Wiggins being on the trading block. That came out a couple of days ago and has been in the circling in the internet, the Twitterverse, as people call it, with Jonathan Kuminga now playing more minutes and being very impactful off the bench and starting, and Andrew Wiggins has kind of just gone really quiet again. So yeah, this is crazy. We'll see what happens with the Warriors. The Suns, of course, they picked up Bradley Beal over the off season. He started the year injured as well with back issues. But this is a team for some reason I just don't trust. I do not trust them, and I think if anyone has listened to me on Sports Max and even in private conversations that I've had with my boys on WhatsApp and all that, I need to be respectful, but I don't really rate Frank Vogel as an amazing coach. I think once he has talent, he uses them. And, Indiana Pacers with Paul George, Roy Hibbert, Danny Granger. You had the Lakers team in, the 2020 bubble. They won a championship. But he struggled quite a lot with that team, and of course, leading to him being fired. And I just feel like they're underwhelming. You expect a lot of offensive productivity from Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, but I feel like the lack of a traditional point guard, not having really a lot of front court strength. Yes, you have Yusuf Nurkic there at center after trading away DeAndre Ayton, but I just kind of feel like something just doesn't sit right in me, and then you could never really trust Bradley Beal to be fully healthy. So the Suns, the Thunder, Minnesota Timberwolves, Kings, Mavericks, Knicks, Cavs, Heat, these are all teams in these power rankings I would like to say are the teams no one wants to play, right? These are the teams that if they get on a run and they have their momentum going for them and they remain healthy, are teams nobody want to face. The Mavericks with Luka Doncic, of course, the Kings, we saw what the Kings did last year. The Thunder, to me, are like a piece away from being, contenders. I think Chet Holmgren it has been remarkable for these Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, has been averaging 30 points per game since last season, was an all-star last season as well. But I think Chet Holmgren, his shooting ability and his defensive ability has opened up the floor for OKC, and I think they're probably just one player away. They need like a bruising, respected tough guy. I think like someone like a Paul George. But of course, Paul George is not going to leave the Clippers. But someone in that mold, someone that brings that instant physical and skill credibility to just go alongside Shea, and Chet Holmgren. I think if the Thunder could do that, they'll be in an outstanding position. So these are my power rankings. Of course, this will be up on the internet as well on Instagram. You could check out those rankings in a little more detail, and see who are my risers and falls, those who have fallen from where they were in the preseason. And yeah, I think this is just my thoughts. Just my thoughts. So yeah, and the next thing we're going to touch on really quickly, before we go on to the next little promo break, before we wrap up this show as well, is the trade deadline. Of course, we've seen, like I said in some of the power ranking discussions, teams needing to probably do some trades. The Celtics I've touched. I think they do need to get bigger and stronger and more dependable in the paint and as a front in the front court. If they could bring in another center, even guys like Dwight Howard and DeMarcus Cousins who are playing overseas, I still believe Dwight Howard in a limited role could be an amazing pickup for a contender. Of course, he has his issues. He was trying to get in with the Warriors this offseason, and it just died out. It didn't happen. We don't know what happened there in those private workouts. But I think Dwight Howard on the Celtics as well could be amazing. A lob threat, a defensive threat, a rebound threat. That's what KP is, of course, with a three-point shot. But you need another body, big chiseled body, I think, in the paint. And, even DeMarcus Cousins, like I said, Andre Drummond, if the Celtics could get another guy, I think they'd be in a really good position to then now contend. Because I had them as my championship winner in the preseason, but I believe if they get another guy like that, it will put them over the top, even over and above the Philadelphia 76ers and Milwaukee Bucks, because they need those bodies to contend against Brook Lopez, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. So that's my thoughts. The Lakers looking for another impact player. There's been a lot of links to Bruce Brown, who was a Denver Nugget, who won with the Nuggets last year, got traded. Well, he left the Denver Nuggets, got a bigger contract with the Indiana Pacers, went over there, seemed really happy, and then he got traded to Toronto for Pascal Siakam. So he's in a little bit of limbo. We heard the Denver Nuggets want to bring him back potentially. They loved him on their team, and also the Lakers are eyeing him up. So we have Bruce Brown linked to the Lakers. You have Dejounte Murray in Atlanta, who I think he's just in purgatory in Atlanta. I think that team, there's just something fundamentally flawed with Atlanta and their team, and whether it be their front office, whatever it might be. The Atlanta Hawks are just an exciting team to watch with Trae Young, but they are going nowhere. I believe after them reaching the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago, they've just petered out. And getting Dejounte Murray, I thought, would be a nice little injection for them, but it hasn't worked out. So the Lakers are looking for another guy. The Nuggets want to bring Bruce Brown back, like I said. Kyle Lowry was moved to the Charlotte Hornets in a trade for Terry Rozier. That Terry Rozier trade right now hasn't really looked that good. They've been losing. Terry Rozier actually even came out and said losing in the Miami Heat culture is so much different from losing with the Charlotte Hornets, where it seemed like there was a culture of losing and it just became normal with the Charlotte the Carolina-based team, which was once owned the majority by Michael Jordan, and since Jordan held that team as owner, they've just not been good. So Kyle Lowry, I'm guessing, is looking for a buyout. I don't think he hasn't played for the Charlotte Hornets as yet, and he will probably want to land on a contender. And I think Kyle Lowry would be a great person to end up on a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. He's from Philly, and I think he would be great with someone like Tyrese Maxey in the starting at point guard, or even coming off the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, he is not championship Kyle Lowry anymore, but he can hit a three-pointer. He can still play a little bit of defense, and he does make good facilitative plays and passing, which could help. Any little helps, would help the Philadelphia 76ers. So don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a homecoming for Kyle Lowry in the next few days as the trade deadline approaches. So yeah, you need to look out for that. And the Knicks, the Celtics, the Warriors, and also the Knicks, I think, need another center. We of course we spoke about Jalen Brunson being, the spark plug and the MVP type caliber player that he's been for the New York Knicks, but I actually believe they need another center. Of course, Mitchell Robinson has been out, with injury. Isaiah Hartenstein has come in and played really well in that position for them. OG Anunoby coming in has kind of brought that defensive tenacity to this team. Julius Randle is a bruiser, and you just had to respect him down low. But I think the Knicks, if they could get another center as well, would be good for them. But of course, there are all these other teams. This is the trade deadline. Teams will be looking to improve their team as much as possible or position themselves, to get good draft picks and compensations for future years. The Detroit Pistons, who we will come to in a minute, I think will probably need to be looking around as well and seeing what they could do to improve their team. So the trade deadlines are always very exciting coming up to the All-Star break, and we will see what the NBA has installed for us at this point of the season. So we're going to stop right here for a little bit and get back to the last few couple segments before we wrap up. We're going to do, of course, another little promo here for the event planning and management book written by Bernadette Albert, Ruth Dowson, and Dan Lomax. If you are interested in event management at all, want to understand risk assessments, the planning process, and all the different things, all the documentation and templates that you need for event management, this is the book for you. There are online resources, if you could see here on the camera, that you could also download once you have you access to the book, or you bought the book as a digital copy as well. It's an amazing book. It's, like I said, an international bestseller for Kogan Page. My wife and her colleagues have already been approached to write a 4th edition because it's been doing so good. So yeah, event management, if you have any sort of educational plan to do this or go into this space, this is your cortex. The University of Virginia and Nashville in the USA have picked this up as their cortex. And if you have any inkling, any inkling or interested in event management, this is the book for you. So that was a promo read for that book, last promo read for the day. The last 2 things we want to touch really quickly is a new segment I would like to start off with, this new introduction of Baseline to Baseline. I like to call it Bétiz, absolute Bétiz of the week. Now, what is Bétiz? You have no idea what that term is. And of course, if you know me, I'm from the Caribbean island of St. Lucia, and we are a very proud people who speak English and also a Creole, French English dialect, Creole, as we say in St. Lucia, and of course, very specific indigenous words that come from that language. And one of those terms is Bétiz. When you hear somebody in St. Lucia and say, boy, that's Bétiz, you know that somebody's saying with a level of emphasis that what you're talking is nonsense, absolute ridiculous, all right? Absolute ridiculousness. So for me, I like to bring this little segment in and call it Bétiz of the week. And the few things, of course, this is my first recording for 2024. So there's been loads of different weeks that have passed. So we missed an opportunity to do like weekly roundups of what I like to call Bétiz of the week. So the first 3 things I want to kind of bring up as Bétiz contenders of the week or of the NBA season so far are: number 1, where's my list of the Bétiz I wanted to talk about? First things first, Detroit Pistons. They were horrendous this season with the mess that they created with the all-time losing record, consecutive losses record in a single season and across 2 seasons and all the stuff that they did. The Detroit Pistons were a team I actually thought in my power rankings were going to be very similar to what I thought the Orlando Magic have become this year. They moved 4 spots down in my power ranking, so they're the 29th team. Imagine that. They're like one of the worst teams, and I still have the Washington Wizards worse than them. But the Detroit Pistons have been an absolute mess. And it's high time that, you know, they find something in this season, you know, whether it be via trade or like I said on Sportsmax, and you need to go check that out. I could put the link to the episode where I spoke about this. They probably need to use this season as an extended training camp. Because what's going on, although the team has been really competitive, you know, they've just not, it's just been unacceptable for an NBA team. Bringing in the 7th highest paid coach in sports in the USA, Monty Williams, you know, 13.8, I think it was, $1 million a year to coach this team after his success in the Phoenix Suns, and them not doing what they're supposed to be doing, winning games and actually improving. I thought that was absolute Bétiz, right, to start off this season. So that's Bétiz number one. The second one I want to call out is the Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers are now into their 3rd season where they're coming up to the trading deadline, and they think they need reinforcements to improve a team around Anthony Davis and LeBron James. That's nonsense, bro. That's nonsense. And I actually think, you know, it's embarrassing for them because, you know, you don't expect teams. Look at the Denver Nuggets, you know, the level of continuity that they have, and they're able to kind of develop the team and improve. But it seems like the Lakers always have really great off seasons, acquiring talent, acquiring team players like they did in this off season. And they're now at a point where they're panicking. Oh, we need to make a move. Yes, LeBron James is 39 years old, 21 seasons in the NBA. You can't really rely on a guy who's played that amount of time in the NBA to lead your team. But Anthony Davis, you know, was supposed to be, you know, the heir apparent from LeBron James and kind of take this team forward. And yet still they're struggling. They're here at you know, average record 24 and 25. You know, under 500 at the midway point of the season. The Los Angeles Lakers, who were in the Western Conference Finals last year, that's disappointing, and that's absolute Bétiz to me. All right, so the Lakers, you know, so far this season, you're just as the fact that you reach on this Bétiz list, you're right there with Detroit in terms of how I think about what this half season has been so far. Yes, you won the in-season tournament, but a lot of people are not really regarding that as a big thing, although I think it's really good that they were able to win it. But it seems like they put all their focus into that and then lost. So yeah. And the last thing I want to call out is Draymond Green. Of course, you know, the Warriors were probably going to struggle this year anyway. You know, this is a team, like I said, they're on the brink of a dynastic breakup, a dynasty breakup. And I think Draymond Green and, you know, not being able to control his emotions and the flailing of the arms and kind of get into it with the refs and everything, you know, you love to have a guy with that passion on your team, but he's just kind of messed up the flow of this team. But I think that's just a symptom of just what the team is right now. Steve Kerr, you know, deserves a lot of criticism of his rotations, being stuck to certain, you know, rotations, not playing the young guys, developing guys like John Kuminga, although he's kind of doing that right now and getting quite a lot of run. But Draymond Green, you know, as someone who likes to say is the vocal leader of this team and the heart and soul of this team, putting yourself in those positions to affect your teammates and repeatedly doing so and not realizing when you need to kind of tone it down is nonsense to me. You're a professional in this league for over 10 plus years. You're a 4-time champion. You've been a defensive player of the year, which means that you know how to play defense without being problematic. Because if you were elite defensively, you know how to play defense without getting yourself in trouble and being, you know, in opposition of the reps. So I'm not happy with what happens with Draymond Green. So to me, he closes off my list for this half of the season of, you know, my Bétiz of the week contenders. All right. So the Detroit Pistons and their mess, the Los Angeles Lakers needing reinforcements, and Draymond Green are my top three issues this year in the NBA and I like to call them my Bétiz contenders. You know, so yeah, so Bétiz, it's Bétiz of the week. I'm going to continue repeating the word so you kind of understand what it is. Bétiz means nonsense. It means ridiculous stuff going on. We don't need none of that in our life, right? So these are the three guys. And what I'd like to do with that actually is I'm going to put out a Twitter link leading to a Twitter poll. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of see which one you think is the worst one of the season so far. So do you think it's the Lakers, crying for more help? Is it the Detroit Pistons and the mess that they've been in, or is it Draymond Green? So that Twitter link is going to be on the description of this YouTube video, and you could find it on my social media pages as we go along. And the last thing I'd like to do on this little episode, I need to tighten up my segments. Of course, I'm still learning. I'm a bit rusty. But the last thing I want to do, and I kind of add in, most people who know me know I love shoes. It's one of the things that I've done and collected over the few years. And when I wrote for Bleacher Report years ago, I always used to put in a section at the bottom of my articles, and I used to call it the footnote. So to kind of talk about shoes, what some of the players are wearing, what to look out for. But the editors at Bleacher Report, every time I submitted my articles, they would always edit the words footnote, because I'm trying to note what's on feet, but they always kind of put the word together as a footnote, so like the footnote to a paragraph. So they'd always edit it and not get my drift of what I'm trying to do. So this is my footnote to the episode, and we're gonna kind of do a little bit of a highlight of a sneaker that this, which is remarkable, and it's gonna be retro this year, coming out December time for Jordan Brand. And once you hear December and holiday and Jordan Brand, you're probably going to get a pair of 11s in some sort of way. So this is the 2014 Legend Blue edition of this shoe. It is set to re-release this holiday season, and staying true to this retro, the 2014 retro. This would be the third time the shoe has retroed. Of course, the original version in 1996, when Michael Jordan played in the All-Star game, wearing the Columbia blue version to this, and then it was retroed again in 2001, Columbia retro, Columbia blue, of course, representing the UNC Tar Heels uniform and color that, of course, Michael Jordan played for. So 2001, there was the Columbia Blue Retro, and in 2014, for whatever reason, they decided to change up the name and call it Legend Blue. But it's essentially the same Columbia Blue. So this is my little ode to the Jordan 11, and in every episode that I do, I'm going to do like a little sneaker spotlight, I think. And this is the first one I wanted to highlight. It's a really cool shoe, all white, crispy. Of course, a little yellowing at the front bit. You don't see many players wearing Jordan 11s as much as we used to back in the day. Of course, we have shoes that are a lot more technologically advanced than this right now, but this is still a very, very awesome shoe to watch and wear, and it's still very comfortable to me. The last few players I think we've seen play with 11s recently were Jeff Green and PJ Tucker wearing exclusives, and Bruce Brown, when he went to collect his championship ring in Denver, wearing that chromed out version similar to what Jeff Green wears. So look out for the Legend Blue Jordan 11. Will be dropping this December from Jordan Brand once again. I got my 2014 pair, so I won't get one, but it's just a little bit of a sneaker spotlight on a shoe that many people love and probably missed on and didn't get an opportunity to get when it released. So you're going to have an opportunity again to own another classic, Jordan 11 Holiday Edition 2024, 10 years since its last released in 2014, and that's what it is. So I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me here on Baseline to Baseline. This is, of course, a little bit of a long episode. I'm going to cut it up into the different sections to kind of make it a little more digestible online. But if you really enjoyed this episode, and looking forward to seeing what more I do, and the guests that I'll be having in for some interviews that we'll have. Like and subscribe to my pages on Instagram. It's Baseline to Baseline UK on Instagram, or search Baseline to Baseline with Alister Albert on YouTube. You will be able to find all my videos there, and of course, you'd see a lot of the analysis that I've done on Sportsmax. So this is me supplementing this analysis, and getting some opportunities to bring some takes and some opinions in on the NBA landscape and as the season progresses. So I'd like to thank you for joining me here. This is my first recording, solo recording since 2 years ago. Like I said, my last interview with Terrence Mann's dad. But hopefully you like this one. You like the little segments that I try to put together. Bétiz of the week. Remember this is going to be a regular thing. We're going to call out the nonsense in the NBA. All right. It's not going to be just plays and bloopers. We're going to be calling out all sorts of manner of things that I consider nonsense. Bétiz. And of course, the footnote section where we speak about shoes that I think that are really cool in the NBA right now, or we would like to see more of, or are probably going to be dropping really soon. So for this episode, I am Alister Albert. Would love to see you here again. Hopefully we get these views up. I'd like to kind of make this a regular thing and kind of just extend my experience doing this. So I like to thank you for watching, and hopefully see you back next time, or catch me on Sportsmax Zone when we speak about the NBA again at some point during the season. All right, take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and peace out.